right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for our last keynote of the day. Join us for an exclusive panel discussion moderated by Diana Mungo, a program manager of small business partnerships and education at Amazon. Hear firsthand from two thriving Chicago-based entrepreneurs as they share their experience selling on Amazon. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as they make their way to the stage.
Chicago, how are we feeling? Thank you so much for having us here this afternoon. My name is Diana Mungu, and I'm a program manager for Amazon's Small Business Partnerships and Educations team. And I'm super excited to be here at the Small Business Expo Chicago and to talk about unlocking success in Amazon store. Today, I'm joined by two incredible entrepreneurs that are based here in Chicago, and they're going to talk and just provide some of the real-world insights that they have selling Amazon store, as well as building growth with their brands. So to kind of get started, I want to introduce both of my panelists today. To the right here, I have Joe Radosevich, perfect, Chief Technology Officer at Ulo. And then to my far left, I have Pamela Jones. She is the President and CEO of Charboys. So to kind of get things kicked off, Pamela, I'm going to begin with you. Can you share a little bit more about your brand origin story and just how you got started with Charboys?
Sure, yeah. I actually had a restaurant downtown Chicago, Chickadilly's at 176 North Franklin, and the partnership dissolved, so I decided to figure out how could I do this on my own. So I would go to the grocery store shelves, and I tell you, I was looking for some clean products back in 2008. And you know, back then they weren't really reading. Oh, right. Back then they weren't really reading the labels. So, but my family suffered from high blood pressure, diabetes, and all of that, and I wanted to make sure that I could bring in healthier products. So, in 2008, I decided, okay, how can I get my product on the shelf? It was so many condiments on that shelf. You know, when you go to the grocery store right now, it's so many. You got your list. You look at your list. You get your go-to, and you're out. So it's one of those things where I felt like, wow, it's a very competitive market. So I couldn't come out with just a barbecue sauce. So I came out with a line of different flavors, from bourbon to teriyaki to Asian to, because I'm also military, traveled a lot. So I came out quite a bit. So then I ended up doing not only the sauces, but a line of different marinades, zero sugar and all that. So I wanted to bring healthier options to consumers. And that was in 2008. So that was my passion, and it still is today. So that's how I launched, and I was able to get the product in all those 800 some odd stores.
Awesome, thank you. And Joe, same question to you. How did you get started with Ulo?
Yeah, so we got started in right around 2013, 2014. Our founder and inventor, James Kornacki, was finishing up a PhD. He had invented the technology. I was doing a master's in chemical engineering, and we were both in the same class where it was taking technology out of the lab and bringing it into the marketplace. And we decided to work on the project together. 3 months after we graduated, we launched a Kickstarter, got fully funded and then some. And from there, we just kind of rolled on. You know, people came to us at that point saying, hey, we can manufacture for you, we can do this for you. So we kind of had to pick our partners. And then maybe about 6 months later, a firm in the UK called Ladboy just emailed us casually and said, hey, like, we like the Kickstarter video. Can we cut it up and release it on our channel? We'll tag you and redirect people to your website. That got 26 million views, and the rest is kind of history. So yeah, we had nothing to do with it other than the original video and saying, yeah, sure, like, any press is good press. And so from there, we just built it.
Awesome. The power of technology. And then Joe, I'll have you stay with your mic. What local resources or community support did you leverage early on in building the brand, and how did that shape the growth for you?
Yeah, we were very lucky in the sense that we were grad students in Northwestern. You know, I think was trying to compete with Stanford and really push towards getting student-led entrepreneurship, getting businesses out of the university. So we had a lot of support from the Farley Center for Entrepreneurship. We got our patent written and our trademark written by basically Northwestern law students working with a firm here in Chicago. And then because of Northwestern, we were able to get into a shared working space with biotech startups, even though we're grab tech. But that really helped. I mean, they had basically conferences, speakers, all sorts of outside support for all those businesses. We really leveraged that. And then, honestly, the city of Chicago, anytime we went to the news, local news channels, they were happy to, have a good story for students, bring businesses. So we really leveraged that in our early days. And then once we kind of got mass market appeal and retail, it's still important to us, but we could use other resources outside of Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Pamela, same question to you. What community resources did you leverage to build the brand?
Well, with the sauces and condiments, as you know, it's a competitive market, so I could not get a loan to save me, to get anyone to get money at a bank to launch this business. So I had to rely on the community resources. It was Axion back then. It's called Allies for Community Business now. But they gave me my first $10,000 loan. And I used that to leverage just to get started, just to get production going with co-packing and small production at that. So that helped. Then I went back and I paid it off. I went to again for another $30,000, paid that off. And then most recently I finished paying off that $100,000 loan today. So I feel really good. I used those funds to launch, to get to across the U.S. And it was that group, that organization in Chicago that really helped me get to where I am. So I'm very grateful for those resources.
Awesome. And speaking of being in a competitive category, can you talk more about how Charboys differentiates compared to your competitors?
So yes, we're not, Charboys is not trying to be a Sweet Baby Ray BBQ or a McCormick, right? So we're about healthier options for consumers. So, if you look at the products and some of our competitors, we're saying we're lower sodium and sugar than most major brands. We're saying that we're gluten-free, GMO-free, no chemical additives. We're saying that we're clean, no zero sugar. Now we're not taking zero sugar and also replacing it with some other type of artificial ingredient. It's actually zero sugar. So we're trying to make sure that the chemicals, are not in our products at all, very clean, and that's what makes us different than most brands. So when you look at the sodium on the barbecue, it's probably 90 milligrams versus 360. You look at our marinades; they're made with all natural herbs and spices. We work with a lot of the local farmers as well. And we got real ingredients. You can open the package. It's rosemary. You see rosemary. You don't see a bunch of grainy little ingredients rolling around. So it's really real herbs and spices. And we're all about, Charboys is about char grilling as well. So we have the char grilling flavor line that has the char grill flavor without the carcinogens. So you're getting that from sunflower oil. So it's real clean, and even before all the trends started. Back in 2008. So we were already positioned for today, we're here. It wasn't anything we had to do to catch up or try to all of a sudden put a zero sugar on your label. So, we were already there.
Yeah, and consumer tastes are changing over time, so it's good that you're evolving to those changes.
Yes.
Awesome. And then Joe, over to you. How does Fulo kind of differentiate within the wine accessories market?
Yeah, I mean, the wine accessory market is kind of broad, but in our very specific niche of sulfite removal. Sulfites are a natural compound and also added as a preservative at the time of bottling. We were lucky that James has a patent from the USPTO, so we can always hang our hat on that. We have legitimate science behind it. We've done all the testing. We have the patent. Nobody else can do what we do. There's certainly competitors who do what we do in a non-patented way and kind of a non-discriminate way, but we're very specific in just removing sulfites. So we're not going to change your wine. We're not going to alter the flavors and aromas, although we do, because sulfites impart a little bit of flavor and change how those flavors appear on your palate. But that's really how we've always approached it. We have legitimate science, legitimate patents. We also have utility patents on one of our products, so we can always kind of go back to that. If you see something that looks like us, it's a knockoff, and let us know. We'll take it down. But that's how we do it. And in the whole broad wine accessories market, a lot of them are just commodities, corkscrews, which we're starting to expand horizontally in because we already have the infrastructure, a customer base. People trust us for what we do after we've been around for 10 years. We're not just buy a 3-pack from overseas and it'll fall apart in a week. So yeah.
Awesome. And given your experiences as a former attorney or USPTO, can you talk about the importance of trademarking brands
Yeah, in the beginning, it wasn't as important as just figuring out how to make sales. How do we get customers? How do we sell the product? All of that. But certainly now, we probably once a year get a knockoff from overseas that Amazon graciously takes down for us without us having to pay attorneys a lot of money. You get brand registry with your trademark. You can do so much by having these hard pieces of assets essentially. Retailers are much more likely to work with you when you have a patent. They know they're not putting snake oil on their shelves, and it's a legitimizing effect. People know that we're in it for the long haul. We're not just here to make a buck and go away once we sell our product. So it's certainly worth it, I think, depending on what product category you're in, what type of business you're in. You might not need to do it, but it never hurts. And nowadays, you can find somebody to do it cheaper than what it was in the past, and especially if you go to some of the, Illinois bar associations, you can usually find people who are looking to take on clients like this, either pro bono or, go to Northwestern, go to whatever, your alumni base is. If they have a law school, they will probably have a program helping, other alumni or giving their law students an opportunity to actually get their hands dirty with this work. So it's important. I would just caveat by saying, depending on what business you're in, the benefits are bigger for some people than others.
Awesome, perfect. In an Amazon store, it's always recommended to have your trademark. That way you can enroll in programs like Amazon Brand Registry, which allow you to protect your IP in Amazon store, right? So to kind of avoid running into issues with things like counterfeit, when you do have that trademark, it just has that extra barrier of protection. Pamela, moving on to you. Let's talk about your manufacturing and distribution strategy and kind of how you got started and how that's evolved over time.
Yeah, so we have two different manufacturing plants in Illinois, one for sauces, one for the marinades, and then also a small facility we have for just backup products. And so distribution is it was something to tackle because you got to figure out, you got to understand distribution and how you're going to get your product from point A to point B without it could be a big risk if you're trying to get across the U.S. So being able to figure out, okay, you can have local distribution where you got local companies here in Chicago that can take your products from store to store in Illinois. That's what we do as well. You can have other distribution like your KE line or Unified for bigger deals like that. But for Charboys, I had to figure that out because when you start, you're manufacturing all these products and you're trying to make sure, to be safe. When you start dealing with big distribution companies, there's a lot to that. If that product, if it's a glass bottle or anything breakable, and you got a purchase order for maybe $300,000, and if it gets broke trying to get across the states, guess who gets to pay for that?
Mm-hmm.
So you got it'll come back as a buyback invoice.
Mm-hmm.
So and you're like, wait a minute, where's my $300,000? You're down to, you might get 130, and you've already you're looking for that to continue to keep your cash flow. So distribution is huge, so what I've figured out, because I've had a lot of my colleagues that have gone down that lane trying to grow fast, and they hurt themselves as far as their financial cash flow. Because when those buyback comes, you have to pay that back in 30 days or, distribution stops. Because you signed this contract that you didn't read the fine print.
Mm-hmm.
Having that attorney with you is huge. So you have to be careful with some of the distributors come to you too when you're signing things. So what I decided to do, okay, I grew slow. I started locally, Illinois, Midwest region. And then when I said, okay, I started with retail, and then the retail was doing great. Then I ended up in wholesale. Well, then I said, okay, let me use in wholesale. I can go with U.S. Food, so that's what we use, U.S. Food, to get to the products to go to restaurants. So we distribute products that way. When it comes to the Jewels and all these, Whole Foods and Mariano's and things like that, it's warehouse. But what you can do is you can use a freight truck. That freight truck, like Old Dominion Freight Line, for example, they'll take your freight from point A to point B for a certain fee. So I paid $336 to get my product to the Mariano's or the Roundy's warehouse, or I pay $1,000 to get it to Albertson Safeway for Jewel, their warehouse, and depends on the weight. But then they're gone. You're not dealing with any contracts. You're not, you got a flat fee. So that helps if you're like a company like myself, just starting trying to grow this brand and not a lot of huge capital, So that's the way I grew it out. But eventually you're gonna have to grow a little bigger. You're gonna get with some of these bigger distributors, and I will say one thing: Amazon is a huge help when it comes to distribution across the U.S. So I'll segue into that, because you do retail, wholesale, and now we're in e-commerce. And with e-commerce, you can get across the U.S. a lot less expensive through Amazon online platform.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll bring the same question to you, Joe. Can you talk about where you're manufacturing? What is the distribution strategy that you have there?
Yeah, so at the moment we primarily manufacture in China. We do some manufacturing in the US, but after our Kickstarter, we're pretty much only approached by Chinese companies, and to this day, there's really only companies in China who can produce our silicone molded products, and there are a few companies that can do our filters worldwide. Unfortunately, they also do all the kind of resins and polymers for like purifying water at nuclear facilities or doing pharmaceutical APIs. So it's really difficult to work with some of those bigger guys. So we're primarily all in China. We consolidated there. We do some of the kitting, some of the post-production here. We've made packaging in the US. We're always nimble and trying to have, one main supplier, a few backup suppliers, because you never know when a global pandemic is gonna hit and you can't get stuff from overseas. So it's evolved over time. I mean, we've manufactured in Romania, Italy, Poland, China, US, but at the moment, unfortunately or fortunately, we're in China. And as far as distribution, we work with 3 warehouses. We basically bring everything into one warehouse. They inventory it. Pre-COVID, we used to do a lot of brick and mortar retail: Bloomingdale's, Sur La Table, Crate and Barrel. Unfortunately, a lot of them have gone bankrupt, so we don't need that. But we pretty much consolidate everything in a Chicago warehouse and then ship from there, whether it's LTL to warehouses, whether it's LTL to Amazon, or UPS, USPS to customers. We are currently looking to change warehouses once more. We were going to go to kind of a multi-warehouse throughout the US, so that way if you're California, you can get your product from our California warehouse, shorter time, shorter freight costs. That brings complications that I'm not sure we're going to go forward with. We might just stick to one warehouse here in Chicago, but you can find them pretty much anywhere. And to go on what Pam said, I mean, Amazon, you can send in a shipment to Amazon and they'll distribute it to wherever their algorithm tells you to distribute it to, and then that's how you get stuff in same day or 2 days. So it's a multifaceted approach, but yeah.
Awesome, perfect. So we'll dive a little into just raising capital and funding before we go into the Amazon specific questions here. But Pamela, we'll start with you. How did you initially fund your business? Did you take on outside investors? Was it self-funded? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I can tell you, I did self-funded. I did my credit cards. I started because I was determined to get that product on the shelf. But yeah, I started out my personal savings with my belief in my brand and credit cards. But then after that, that's how I came up with the local resources of getting the local loans from groups, and being able to grow the brand. So, but I say that I grew this brand and it scaled itself up, but it took time. And but it's in a good space right now. There's no debt to the company, and but it was because of the slow steps I took, not trying to get to the top overnight. And it's a lot of hard work. And so, but you have to be careful in how you structure your business, for that growth and prepare different ways of growing. And so I would say that the growth also happened too because I was able to pivot from retail to, you know, wholesale, and then of course e-commerce, which to me is the way to go. You know, and I think that's one of the biggest way to go, and especially if you're trying to grow that brand without investing a lot of capital, unless you know get investors. But yeah, that's how I started.
Awesome, awesome. And then Joe, for you, as far as funding, how did you fund the business?
Yep. So the first $5,000 came from a Northwestern entrepreneurship competition, and James's idea won that, so that was $5,000. But then really everything stemmed from one professor. He was the director of the Farley Center for Entrepreneurship, Mike Marasco, and he put us in touch with alumni, a design firm, anybody we wanted to talk to for potential investments. And there was a lot of no's in the beginning. Our design firm who designed our original product is here in Chicago. We actually sold them a convertible note. So basically it can convert to equity or we can buy them out. So that's how we took on funding, or at least got services for not having to pay out. They are still an investor today, and they still help us out where they can. But really, it came to the Kickstarter. You know, we had the prototype, we had the video, all of that, and then once we achieved our goal was 100,000. We did 157,000. We then went on Indiegogo In Demand, which is another crowdfunding platform, and sold another 300,000. And then it became a lot easier to go to wealthy individuals and say, like, here's our product, would you like to invest? So we never took VC money, we never took angel investors. Well, we have angel investors, but just we call them regular investors. But never went like the private equity route, never went that way. Some of the investors, once we did really well, said, hey, congrats, like this is great, but you know, it's a small investment for us, this is kind of a headache, can you just pay us back? And no harm, no foul. Like, we want to invest in bigger things. So we still have a lot of our original investors and advisors, but that's how we did it. So much more, I don't know, kind of traditional approach, but they've been so helpful. And, you know, hey, I used to work with a guy who got his MBA and works at this retailer, you know, talk to him, maybe you can get in. So it's been helpful to have investors with connections. And obviously Northwestern University has always supported us. And, you know, anytime we need a contact, we can usually find one.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so switching gears, let's talk about selling on Amazon, how you got started. So Pamela, questions to you. When did you begin selling in Amazon store, and what programs did you find to be most beneficial for your growth?
Yeah, I started an Amazon store, selling on Amazon in 2018. I had got the products that got put in Whole Foods, and so there was an event that I went to for Whole Foods that Amazon was presenting, and so one of the account managers encouraged me to try to build a store on Amazon because we were already in Whole Foods. It's a good match. So that's how I got started. But the account manager himself was very helpful. I mean, Amazon has a team out of this world. You know, and then from there, I was able to get into the accelerator program, which where they match you with a mentor that will be with you for at least a year. And that mentor will help you understand, navigate through that system, the Amazon system, understanding the campaign ads, understanding how to do keywords, how to set it up, how to build and sell your product, how to build your store out, how to get more product in your store, how to get your product ranking up. So that was a lot of, and it's, you know, you're working through the Amazon platform, but you're learning a lot about what you would not normally know because they know the ins and outs. So I had an account manager that was amazing, that it really helped me grow that brand. And so, like our bourbon teriyaki is our champion. You know, it sells all the time on a daily because of that. So, and it's selling across the U.S. And then it's just, you know, then they sent us to Seattle. We've been paid for all our flight, hotel to go to the accelerator program, the event itself. And that was really amazing to be around all those different sellers of Amazon, millions of folks out there just doing their thing with Amazon and learning about the ins and outs of Amazon and the success of selling online, making millions. So that was, to be in that room and be in that atmosphere was just so inspiring. And it also, you know, it helped you to understand some of those FBA fees, how to navigate around that, how to do self-fulfillment, how to do, you know, or you do self-fulfillment, or you do, you know, help them VA fulfillment. So learning all that too, and figuring out what's the best route for you and your brand. Lightweight, if you're doing lightweight products, or if you're doing heavier products, what's the best way to, market that, and it was so helpful, I think, having that coach during that whole process. And I think that whole year I've learned so much to be able to now go in there and understand how to set it up in Amazon. It's not an easy task, but if you get help like what I did, it helped me to really understand that whole system from the back end. That changes on a constant sometimes.
Awesome. And the program that, I just want to provide some clarity there, the program that Pamela was talking about is the Black Business Accelerator Program. So I actually used to serve as an account manager within that program. And it was a 4-year commitment that started in July of 2021. That program has since commenced, but it's evolving to be opened up to other small businesses from different diverse backgrounds. But with that, you're paired with a mentor for about a year that's going to help you kind of navigate building your account, setting up your listings, sending in any inventory into our fulfillment centers, and then just overall just helping you drive growth. But yeah, love to hear that you had really great experience with that.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Joe, over to you. When did you begin selling in the Amazon store, and what programs did you find most beneficial?
Yeah, we started selling in 2017 primarily because one of our retail partners, who was a national retailer kind of going bankrupt, decided to discount our product about 40%. And so we had some Amazon arbitrage players put our products on Amazon and sell it at a different price. And at this point, we were still, fulfilling our Kickstarter, just building inventory. Really didn't have a lot to go crazy and sell everywhere. So we kind of forced our hand to one, get them removed, and then say, hey, we have our trademark, we have our UPC codes from GS1, we're the actual brand, we control the listings. Got all of that back. And really the first couple of years, we never did any program with Amazon. We just read a lot of blog articles, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of just, looking for clues anywhere on how to optimize it. Got into PPC, payment per click, or their Amazon advertising, and we really built it organically. We definitely have a tech stack that we use, whether it's Amazon ad optimization software, we just changed ours to a new company. We've used firms that specialize in, listing images. There's tons of software out there. You got to find what works for you. But we've always kind of done it that bootstrap way of just figuring things out ourselves, what works. You got to read probably 10 different articles on the same topic and figure out what's false, what's true, what actually works for your brand, your category, your price point. Obviously shipping has been something that's ever changing, what the rates are, how much stuff you can send in, what product category you're in, whether you're small standard, large standard, oversized, etc. So it's a lot of research because it's always changing, and you just have to stay on top of it because there is a bit of a first mover advantage, and also you might find out a little later, like, oh, we really should have been doing something different because this is costing us a lot to have that inventory in there. But there are no shortage of third parties that will tell you they will 10x your Amazon business overnight if you work with them. You just got to find a partner that can actually do that or lead you in the right direction. But there's a whole ecosystem out there. But obviously programs like the Accelerate programs are great. We have worked with what they call SAS, Strategic Account Services representative. That's been incredibly helpful because you speak with someone in the US who, is in Seattle, can talk to somebody there. It's just much different than going through Seller Central support, which is not bad, but sometimes there's a script. Yeah, there's a script that they follow, and sometimes logic is not part of that script. So yeah, that's really the only. I can't think of any other program per se that we've used, but there's plenty of people out there, plenty of experts who've done it for multiple brands. So you just gotta search and do a lot of introductory phone calls and look at their software and do a demo, and you do it long enough and you kind of figure out that Amazon's always changing, so you never get to kind of relax and just be like, oh, this is how it's going to be done. It'll always change.
Yeah. And And then just a shameless plug, my team, Small Business Partnerships and Education, we work really closely with SCORE and the SBA, so definitely great local resources there, and lots of mentors that have experience working with entrepreneurs that are wanting to launch Amazon. So definitely leverage your SCORE partners, your SBA partners for that assistance as well. Joe, you made mention of Amazon ads and how that could be a bit tricky. When you started advertising on Amazon, did you do that in-house or did you outsource to an external agency?
Yeah, well, we did it in-house. None of us have an advertising background, but in the beginning it was pretty intuitive. You know, someone searches the word ULO, our brand name. We'll bid on that. You know, back then it was probably 15 cents. Now Amazon suggested bid is probably $5.50. So just bear that in mind. We did it in-house until it got too complicated to be adjusting the bids, and then Amazon rolls out, you know, budget rules where, hey, if you're converting really well, you can increase the budget during this time of the day. And then they came out with sponsored brands, and then they came out with sponsored display, DSP, TV, and now they have Amazon Marketing Cloud, which is an even more complex way to get kind of audiences and segment people who buy. So when we first started, it was very manual. You know, we would set our bids and, you know, pay 10 cents every click, and it was super simple. Then we kind of got into some software that would allow you to dynamically bid up and down, and do all sorts of other kind of rules-based bidding. And then you really had to get the next piece of software, which was, all right, where are your keywords ranking? What are people searching? What's the most searched keyword for this category? And then do you have that keyword in your listing so that you index for it, so that you show up organically, yada, yada, yada. It's become a very complex beast. And you don't need software to do it, but you certainly can do a lot more if you have software that's running 24/7, because you still got to go on vacation, you have to sleep, you have to do other stuff in your life, and you can't just be maniacally looking at this. So yeah, we did it all in-house. I still do a lot every day, just kind of looking at it, tracking, making sure that everything is working. I'll touch on, you know, they now have creator connections where you can kind of get Amazon affiliates who are on Amazon doing live streams. You can do brand referral bonuses. So if you have affiliates on Instagram and they link you up, or they link your product to Amazon in their posts, you know, they get a referral commission, you get referral commissions. There's just so much going on in the world of advertising now that I don't know if you could really do it by yourself, depending on how you want to approach it. But there's also, you know, 1,000 different companies trying to do Amazon ad optimization, SEO, listing optimization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yeah, I always say do your due diligence if you're going to work with an outside agency, because you don't want to get miscoached. Pamela, question for you. Did you leverage any type of advertising on and off of Amazon? Did you leverage any type of advertising on and off of Amazon? Did you like a sponsored products or anything like that?
Yeah, I did the advertising, but I worked with that account manager a lot to help me with that. Then I did try to source it out, but when I did, I made a kind of a mistake because the group that I was dealing with, and I wasn't knowledgeable of how that platform worked, the ins and outs of the back of Amazon. They took down my listing, and boy, that listing had been, meaning that my products were at a certain level, right? From here to here, that's where it was up here, so I'm getting, you know, views all the time. And when they took it down, I had to start back to zero. I did not know when they took it down that that's what it would do. And that's because I didn't understand. So I had to learn that these companies out here are people that you hire to do things. You gotta know as much, at least know as much as you can, because they took it down in order to build the store. I lost 8 years of placement.
Oh wow.
That was painful. I had to start that Bourbon Teriyaki back over again. And it took me years to get it back up to the level. I wasn't getting any sales. Nobody was buying because it was back at a zero. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and I didn't know, you know, I'm like, why am I not getting those, you know, where are my sales? I was doing daily here. So I had to learn quickly. I learned how to,
do due diligence.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for the accelerator program because I got that account manager to help me learn the ins and outs. So, but before that, I had made that mistake, so.
Well, and just to add into that, now Amazon, if you go to like their Amazon Marketing Cloud, you can look at, you know, vendors that are approved or that have an Amazon kind of badge of trustworthiness, or, you know, you're not gonna get, hopefully not get removed, but it's been cleaned up a lot. I mean, back in the day, I don't know about you, but we used to get people who said like, oh, we can black hat your competition and, you know, help you out, and we can steal Amazon customer information, and you're like, yeah, but if you get us knocked off.
Right.
So it was the Wild West. It's a little bit regulated now.
Yeah, awesome. All right, before we close here, I just have 2 questions. So based on your experience building and scaling your brands, what is something that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started? Joe, how about you?
A lot, but I would just say it's, you know, you always kind of get to the next level and you think, okay, I can take a break, I can breathe, we're here, we're good. You're not. Something changes, you know, whether it's global pandemic and all your product is stuck and you can't ship it and you gotta figure it out. Or, you know, there's tariffs, or, you know, a new form of advertising comes out. Like, we were lucky that we could ride the wave of some social media from its very early stages. But we were late to TikTok, and other people capitalized on that faster than us. So we've always kind of thought, oh, we made it, or oh, we're at a point where we can kind of enjoy the business. And you can, I'm not saying that's not true, but you're perpetually learning, because if you don't figure something out faster than your competition, they will eat your lunch. It's a competitive marketplace, and you just have to stay on top of that, because there will be a new upstart who has fresh capital who can come in and knock you off the podium. And it's something that if you're there and established, yeah, it's certainly hard to get knocked off, but there's no shortage of people trying. I mean, we have foreign sellers selling products that say they do the same stuff. I don't know what's in them. You know, one of them has the same address, which is on a U.S. Treasury sanctions list for dealing in Iranian petrochemicals. It's the exact same address. Foreign seller. We have to deal with that. We have to find a way to outcompete them. You know, we don't know what kind of money they have, or if they're getting their product essentially free because they are the manufacturer. There's just all sorts of things that it's always changing. There's new ways to advertise. There's new ways to reach customers. There's ways where you used to reach customers and then Apple, for privacy reasons, cuts that out. So you're always just trying to figure out what's on the horizon, which way is the wind blowing. You know, it's a never-ending kind of story of, you think you're on solid ground and then it moves right from under you. So yeah, I wish I would have known that it was a continuous process and really never-ending. It just would have saved me a lot of stress of being like, why is this changing?
And Pamela, quickly for you, same question. What is one thing you wish you knew?
Well, I think too, I guess I think e-commerce, I think if I had known back in 2008 or 13 that e-commerce was gonna go this route, wasn't until we had the issue with everything going on in the world that we found out that, okay, nobody's going to work, everybody's at home. And I wish I had known I wish I had taken it a little bit more seriously, the online platform, because the end goal, regardless of what you're doing, what you want to do is you want your product in that person's household. That's it. Whether they go get it at a store, whether they go get it, wherever they go get it, you want that customer, you want that person to have your product at their home. So why not just make it online? Make it to a point where that's where it will be by 2030. I think that's where we're going at, and I wish I had known that. Yes, I have the retail, yes, I have the wholesale. I think that's good to have. I think it's also good to have various strategies of streams of income with your business, not rely on one, because if one drops, you're kind of out there. But I do believe that e-commerce is the way to go, because of if I had known that with distribution, back then, spending all these, dealing with distributors and all these fees associated with distribution is huge. And when you deal with Amazon or any other place where you're sending your product to them, you pay a fee. Let's say if I want to send a case of one of those heavy barbecue sauces to California. If I did it on my own, it's going to cost me about $78, $90, $80 to get that case over there. If I go through Amazon with their share partner, it's going to cost me $13.96.
No way.
So, and it's going to California, and it's going to other places all across the U.S. And then I don't have to get this truck to break it along the way. And I don't have to worry about getting something, an invoice in the mail or email buyback, So if I had invested all my time into the e-commerce and all the money, all my efforts, I think I'd, be well beyond where I am right now. But I had to learn along the way, just like you mentioned. You learn along the way. So I would say that because not only do you have Amazon, you got Shopify, you got Here Market, you got
Several channels.
several channels, right? But Amazon has mastered blending retail and online. That is a powerful thing. They have mastered blending the two together, even with the Amazon Fresh. And so they have the online, but they also blend it with the retail. They've got both, but online is where everything is really going anyway. So, and it's one of the fastest way and the safest way to build on your time so that you're not stressed out financially. You can determine how much you want to sell. And when the sale comes, you put that money away and do the next thing. You build, and then you spread out. So that's a safe way, and it's also the goal again is to get across the U.S. or nationally, and that's what it does. So that's what I wish I had known back then. I'd probably be somewhere chilling out right now.
Well, you're doing well in 800 retail stores, so congratulations.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. I do want to open it up to Q&A. If you all could please scan the survey here, leave your honest feedback, let me know how we did. That would be greatly appreciated. Now I'm going to open it up to some questions. If you could please stand up to ask your question, that would be great. Up here, yes.
Hi, my name is Stella B. I have a question for Pamela and Joe. You mentioned that you first got like $10,000, I think, from Axion, and then $30,000, and then another $100,000 that you just paid off today. Congratulations. Can you tell us specifically what you bought with those initial investments?
Oh yeah, I sure can.
So Pamela, before you start, I'm just going to repeat the question so that
Oh,
audience
sure.
can hear. So her question was, with her early investments that she got, what did Pamela invest in?
Yeah, so I did, the first thing was trying to get the packaging. Well, actually, I did the trademark myself. I couldn't afford to hire a trademark. It took me 3 years to do it. Because of all the back and forth. But paying for all the up cost infrastructure, your labels, your finding the co-packer, researching,
Okay.
the packaging and all that, and then preparing for growth. Then you gotta upfront the order. So you get a purchase order, but you have to get the inventory. So you have to kind of pay for that. And so you're waiting 30 days for your check, your money to be coming back to you. So I used it to have a cash flow so that, because once you dealing with co-packers, if you go that route, which to me is a better way, because why go ahead and set up a facility? That means you gotta understand how to set it up, all the equipment, and you don't have time for that. You wanna just find somebody who does it and do it well, plug in. So with that, I was able to get get it off the ground faster with that money. And then once I used that money and that was flowing well, I built my credit. It also builds your business credit. So now you got Duns and Bradstreet, your score is up because of that loan that's being recorded. And so then you go for the next loan, and I used it to grow again to be able to do more stores.
Okay.
Then when I realized, okay, I got Albertsons, Safeway, I've got Jewel, okay, Whole Foods comes around, so I gotta make sure I can handle that. So you buy inventory. But the good thing is there's another group called C2FO. C2FO is a platform where you can get paid within 15 days. And how that works is, because I had to figure out that with the money coming in, the loans and everything, I didn't want to borrow, and I won't be borrowing after this again, but hopefully. And so if you plug into the platforms that way, you can pay maybe, depends on how much you bid for, but like a 0.9%, which is like $50 to get your checks back for 20 grand within 15 days.
Wow.
So, I use that money to keep growing the brand, and I put it right back in so that I was always ahead. That's how I did it.
Thank you.
All right, let's do another question. Great.
Joe didn't answer.
Hello, I'm an entrepreneur, been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years. And I started as service-based and now I'm going into product. And I'm fairly new at the e-commerce level. I would like to know from your expertise, in my mind, I see my profit margin being one thing for my own platform, my website. At what point do you think that it's beneficial to be on Amazon? Because I know once you're on Amazon, like that's the biggest SEO platform online. And so to compete with your website with all of the charges coming from Amazon, I mean, do I use this to build the brand because no one knows who I am? Do I use it to, like, what do I do?
So, Jody, want to answer that question?
Yeah, I think you do it regardless. I mean, Amazon can be great for brand building. It can be great for moving product. It really comes down to, I mean, we have a Shopify store, and that's really where we have our core customers. You know, they can reach out to us, we can post our content, we can do whatever we want with it. And in reality, you know, Amazon used to be more expensive. It's now kind of on parity with Shopify, just as UPS rates and USPS rates go up, and you pay your warehouse, and you do all this other stuff. So I think you do it, and once you start getting the numbers back from Amazon, you might be surprised that your costs are less. You might find that you have people who say, I bought your product originally on Amazon, now I'm buying from your store because I like to support small businesses. And there's a lot of people who still believe that going to the brand's actual website, buying from there, you know, subscribing to the email list, that's important to them as a customer. So you do both, and you take what you can get from both. Amazon has really opened up customer information. Amazon Marketing Cloud now lets you query customer information that's anonymized. So it can be scary doing that. We didn't really want to go on Amazon at the beginning because in 2017 we didn't own the customer. Amazon owned the customer. That's changing, and you know, you get different things from Amazon. We have TV events where we're on like USA or ABC Good Morning America and Steals and Deals and stuff like that. You always see a boost on Amazon because some people just want to buy on Amazon. You also get people who say, I saw you on Amazon, I don't like buying from Amazon, I want to buy on your store. So there's different customers in every different channel. I think you want to be on all of them as much as you can be. Target.com, Walmart.com, everywhere. Because you never know which one is going to help you build your brand, where your product is going to resonate with their customers. Amazon might not be your biggest channel. For a lot of people it is, but I think you do everything as much as you can do and do it well at a level that is successful.
So definitely a multi-channel approach is important there to kind of see what works best for you. But we are at time. I do apologize.